This is the sixth in a series of short videos designed to teach you how to have truly effective emotional management and mental and emotional fitness. In the last session, we started to talk about how to develop an internal locus of control. We said that the real formula for feelings is event plus thoughts equals feelings. In other words, thoughts cause feelings, not events. We also said that one of the disadvantages of having an external locus of control is that you give away the real power and control that you do have over how you're going to feel. That power comes from the fact that we all have a host of cognitive choices that we make all the time, usually without being aware that we do, that really determine how we end up feeling about whatever others say and do, what happens, or even ourselves. The way we make these choices is often well practiced and rehearsed, and therefore automatic. That's why we are more often than not largely unaware that we are in fact making such cognitive choices. These choices include how we look at what happens, what meaning we attach to what does happen, what we remember about the past at any given moment, what we imagine will happen next, what we focus on, what we compare things to, what we expect of ourselves, others, in life in the first place, and finally, how much importance we attach to what does happen or that might. The reason we have a choice is that there's always more than one way to look at anything. There's always more than one meaning we could attach to what happens. There are always many things we could remember from our past, from things that would bring tears to our eyes to things that would make us smile and laugh. We could imagine something bad happening or something good or something somewhere in between. We could focus on what we have or what we don't have, what we like or don't like. We could compare ourselves, our lives, and what happened to things that would make us feel better or other things that would make us feel worse. We could be very demanding of ourselves, others in life, and expect way too much, or perhaps set our sights way too low for our own good. Last, but by no means least, we can attach as much or as little importance to what happens as we'd like. When we pick one way of looking at things to the exclusion of others, or focus on one thing to the exclusion of others, we technically make a choice. We could have chosen other ways of looking at things, or something else to focus on, or at least could learn to do so with practice and rehearsal. Having such choices, knowing what they are, and learning to use this new knowledge to our advantage can be very empowering. We're not at the mercy of what others say and do or what happens, because we do have some choice in the matter. Dr. Viktor Frankl wrote a book about surviving the Holocaust. When asked how he survived the horrible, inhumane things the Nazis did to him and his family, his answer was, "Everything can be taken from us but the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own." In other words, your last freedom is your attitude. Like the way you feel now, there is hope for feeling better. Whatever way we make such choices now is perfectly understandable, given what we've each been through, even if it makes us feel worse than we need to, would like to, or than is helpful. However, the way we make such choices is not cast in stone. We do have a choice. We can learn to make them differently, and with practice and rehearsal, the new ways of making these choices can become automatic, just like our old ways did. And we will learn to feel differently and better by way of the same process of simple rehearsal and practice that we learn to feel. An obvious question then becomes, what's the best way to look at things? What is the best meaning to attach to what happens? What should we remember about the past or imagine for the future? What should we focus on or compare things to or expect of ourselves, others, in life? And how much importance should we attach to what does happen or that? The short answer is that you can make these choices any way you'd like. There is no perfect way to make them. It's totally up to each of us how we make such choices. However, there will be emotional consequences, either good or bad, for the way we do make such choices. There are some simple questions that people can learn to ask themselves and others to help themselves and others identify the best possible ways to think or look at things. The first is simply, how do you want to feel? Please note that this question is just another version of the question we suggested you ask in session 3, which was, what do you really want? The next question is, does the way you choose to think or look at things now allow you to feel the way you'd really like to? Or does it make... Some follow-up questions might be, does feeling bad do you any good? Does it make your life better or worse to think or look at things the way you do and feel the way you do because of that? Does it make you want to try harder and keep going or give up instead? So many of the good things in life are the simple product of patience and perseverance. Here's an important thing to think about. If someone else says or does something inappropriate, does it make sense for you to feel bad while they might be off having a good time somewhere else? And if you do, who's doing that to you? You or them, for example. Let's say a student says something inappropriate to a teacher during the day. Later that night, the teacher is getting all upset again about what the student said earlier in the day. Meanwhile, the student is home having great fun playing video games online with his friends. Does it make sense for that teacher to feel bad when the student is the one who said something inappropriate in the first place, especially when the student is having a fun night? And if that teacher is getting upset, who's doing that to her at the time? How could that student be doing that when he's nowhere around at the time? A simple way to sum up all these questions is to ask yourself, how's it working for you? How's it working for you to think the way you do or look at things the way you do now? And finally, if you keep thinking that way or looking at things that way, will it make it easier or harder for you to feel the way you really want to in the future? These questions could be followed by, does what you think and how you choose to look at things and how you feel and what you say and do because of that get you what you really want in your life or from it? And if you keep thinking or looking at things the way you do now and feeling, saying, and doing what you always have because of that, will it be easier or harder for you to get what you really want in the future? There's one additional question you could ask yourself or someone else if either of you are in a relationship. If someone else thinks that way or looks at things that way and says or does what they do because of that, will you ever be able to feel the way you'd like to with them? And will you ever be able to get what you want from them or with them? The answers to all these questions are usually surprisingly obvious if someone simply asks the questions of themselves or others. Earlier we noted that people call events many different things, and what you call it doesn't change what happened. It just causes you to generate more or less emotion, and it just makes it easier or harder to deal with. So is something a problem or an accident, or maybe just a mistake? Is it a problem or an opportunity, or perhaps even a challenge? Being quick to label an event as a problem often ends up being part of the problem. Perhaps it might be better to always start by saying it's just an event. Years ago, there was a stand-up comedian named Henny Youngman. One of his jokes was to say, I went to a doctor and said, Doc, it hurts when I do this. The doctor said, so stop doing that. Why that was funny back then may be hard to figure out now, but it's relevant to this discussion. If you think or look at things in a way that makes you feel worse instead of better, the obvious solution is to stop doing that. Einstein reportedly said, to continue to do something the same way and expect different results is insane. Another way to say that is if you keep thinking or feeling, saying, and doing what you always have, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. If you want to feel better, you need to start thinking or looking at things differently. If you want your life to turn out differently, you need to start saying and doing things differently. But it all starts with how you think or choose to look at things. Thoughts cause feelings, not events, and attitude is always the father of behavior. In their book, Changing Problem Behavior in Schools, Dr. Alex Molnar and a therapist named Barbara Lindquist talk about frozen perceptions that people have about themselves, others, and life. They keep them locked into a problem pattern of behavior in conflict with others. Their suggestion, try changing the way you look at the other person's behavior and the meaning you attach to it. Then act toward them as you would if that new meaning were in fact true, and see what happens. Albert Einstein also said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. Developing an internal locus of control means learning the real cause of your feelings, learning what your cognitive choices are, and learning to use all that new knowledge to your advantage so that you can feel better and feel the way you do. It also means learning what you do and don't have control over, and learning to focus on and work with what you have control over instead of focusing on and trying to control things you don't and can't control. Here's a simple way to diagram a conflict between two people. Whatever someone else says or does is just an event for you. You generate thoughts about that event. These thoughts cause you to generate anger. When you say or do, what you say or do next would be a new event for them. They generate thoughts about what you said or did. They generate anger because of those thoughts. They say or do something back to you. That would be a new event for you to generate more thoughts about. And away we go. The simple but important question is, which half of the circle do you have control over? We only control our half. In which half of the circle do most people spend much of their time and energy trying to control? What someone else thinks, feels, says, or does. That's why so much of what people often say and do in arguments doesn't work. Two important things to realize and remember are, first, Despite what many people believe and the way many people talk and act, we really don't and can't control what others think, feel, say, or do. If we're lucky, we might be able to influence what someone else chooses to think, feel, say, or do, but we don't and can't control what they think, feel, say, and do. We only really control what we think, feel, say, and do. And getting that right is more than enough of a job. These facts have long been embodied in the Serenity Prayer or poem. Give me courage to change things I can, the serenity to accept things I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's the part that most people struggle with. Too many people spend too much time and energy on trying to change and control things they can't, like what others think, feel, say, or do, and too little time and energy on trying to change and control the things they can, which is what they think, feel, say, or do. You can read more about developing an internal locus of control at www.itsjustanevent. Or you can read about how to develop an internal locus of control in the book entitled It's Just an Event, It's Your Choice How You Want to Feel by Ray Mathis. That book is available at Amazon.com, www.itsjustanevent.com, and also from the PublisherAmerica.com online bookstore.